So what were some of the mistakes that you made? And I assume this would be in filling out the forms?
Yeah.
And maybe just kind of go through a couple of the forms as well too, and what you did.
Yeah, 2 major mistakes that I made in the N4 form. Number 1 was I did not deliver it properly. So with the N4, notice to evict for non-payment of rent, you have to deliver it through courier or through the mail, Canada Post, given the specific number of days. It has to actually reach the home through mailing service.
All right, cool. We are live. We were just trying to I was trying to make sure I pronounced your name correctly, but it's Weiting.
Yes.
And in Jamaica, we say ting, small ting, Weiting.
Yes. And the drink, the ting.
That's right. Don't mash up the ting. There's all kinds of ting that Jamaicans talk about. But anyways, listen, I'm happy to have you here. Thank you for making the trek out. Listen, we got lots to talk about. Open room. I want to get into that. I remember when I first saw it, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into this. I thought it was illegal. The way that it looked, I'm like, oh my God, I can just look up a tenant's name or a landlord's name. But we'll get into it.
Yes, and I think for decades, people have built Facebook groups that called out people's names, and that is not allowed because all of those are conjecture. There's no fact-based evidence that shows is that name even the one that has the bad behavior behind it. So when we built Open Room, we kept thinking, well, how do we make sure that we hold people accountable with evidence? And that's when we came out with court orders, because court orders are accessible by the public if you go and request it from Freedom of Information request from the courts. So that's how it all started. So everything inside Open Room, it is based on evidence, factual pieces.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to dive into that. So 3 things I want to really kind of dig into. I want to get into your story, what you were doing before, and why did you end up starting Open Room, which is probably because of an issue that you had with a problematic tenant. Then I want to dive into what Open Room is and what it does and how it helps investors and I guess maybe even potentially tenants. And then last we'll dive into the future of Open Room. Like, where do you see this going? What are some of the new things that you're trying to put into it? Because I think there's definitely some benefits to it, and there's a lot of people that are using it.
Yeah.
So where did you work? Because you just recently quit your job as well.
I did. Both my co-founder and I said we're going to double down on Open Room. If we're even going to try to solve some of the issues that the housing crisis is experiencing right now, we're going to double down on it and see where we get to by end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have an IT background? Like, where were you working? What kind of strengths do you have in that arena?
Yeah. Ever since I graduated from university, I went to York University for the Schulich School of Business. I have an international business background or degree. And then I went straight into product management. So my first job was actually at Bell Canada, and I was working on the My Bell self-serve app. That's where you pay your bills and all the millions of customers go in to maybe dispute, troubleshoot, and look at their bills. So that's where I first started. And then I went into, after telecom, I went into education technology, natural language processing, so some of the AI stuff that we hear about today, and then went into insurance sales brokerage in the United States. And then I was a product manager. So what that means for those who are listening is that I build software for a living. I work with the engineers and the product designers to look at interactions between users and how we deliver value to the users who are actually using the mobile apps or the web applications.
Okay, cool. So you got a bit of an IT background,
yes,
let's say, and business as well too. So kind of marrying the two. I used to kind of do that as well too when I was at TD Bank. I was a service manager.
Okay.
I first started off in IT, then I went to be like almost like the liaison between the business and IT, because it's a different language. It's very different.
Yes. And many early career professionals or people who are already in their deep into their career are thinking about product management as a field to go into, because they often think, oh wow, I don't have to code and I can earn a lot of money doing this. And that is one of the major misconceptions about the tech field when it comes to product managers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So then you got into real estate investing. When did you purchase your first investment property, and why?
Yeah. You know what? I'll be the first to call out that I was very privileged. My dad is an electrician. My mom is a homemaker at the time. It was 6 months after graduation for me when my dad and my mom helped me purchase the first home. And it wasn't supposed to be an investment property in the long run, right? It was supposed to be my principal residence coming out of school. But because I worked downtown at the time, we said, all right, we're going to rent it out for a few years before I move back in. And so that's how it first started. So before my partner and I got married, each of us owned our own property because in today's world, I can't rely on somebody else. I have to provide my share. I have to bring my share to the table, right? So before we got married, we decided, all right, we're each going to have our own property, our principal residences, and then that's how we first got started.
And when was that? How long ago?
It was over a decade.
Okay.
About a decade ago.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you did that, and then you purchased a second property, or is this where the problematic tenant started from this particular one?
Yeah. So at the time, we were actually living in the downtown condo that we had, which was my partner's property.
Okay. Yep.
And then my property was the one that we had rented out, which is where the problematic tenant was. Okay. And you know what, to be very fair, they were not problematic to me in the first couple of years. I think where it really fell apart was when the pandemic happened. And then that turned into a very sour experience from hey tenants, I would love to move back into my own home. So I issued what's called the N12 for personal use, paid compensation for it. And then it really quickly turned into a non-payment of rent situation. So that went on for a good 2 years before I got in front of the LTB.
Why do you think that happened?
Why do I think the tenants had not paid rent?
Yeah, like was it because do you think that there was a lot of like forums starting to open up, Facebook pages and sharing ideas of like, hey, you don't have to pay rent. It's going to take them 8-9 months to get you out anyways. Like, what do you think it all transpired from?
The pandemic, I think, is what's triggered it at first. And then there were announcements in the whole tenant rights communities talking about how long it took for the backlogs at the LTB to even get your case heard. And then what are the repercussions of non-payment of rent? And I believe that there were many other components in my tenants' lives that have given them the experience of going through non-payment of rent. So maybe something similar. I can't really share all of the details behind it, but some further investigations showed that I think that they have some experience. Not saying that they have had non-payment of rent specifically, but other things like related to their business.
Okay, got it. Now, did they just completely stop? Or was there a trickle of funds coming in as the months went on?
Yeah, they decided that they were going to stipulate the legal lawful rent amount. So at the time, it was about $3,000 for the entire house. To today's dollars, or if you look at a detached home and how much it costs to rent, $3,000 at the time, wow, great pricing. Okay, so it was for the whole house, 4 bedrooms, and then they decided, you know what, I'm only going to pay $2,000 because that's all I can afford. So I said, okay, let's work out a payment plan. Let's discuss how we can make an arrangement plan with you, so then maybe I can take back the basement and you can have a reduced rent. All right, but I can't just go down, give you $2,000 without giving anything to me in return. So we had payment arrangements. None of it was accepted, and then later on, it turned into full-on non-payment.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, and then what was that like going through the experience of the landlord and tenant board? Did it feel like it was fair at all, or was it leaning towards one side?
I think that during my time going through the LTB process, it was one, I made really dumb mistakes myself.
Let's walk through those.
Yeah, we can totally walk through those fatal errors that I made. But then at the second, I knew deep down that justice was going to prevail, and I had all of the evidence. I was a great documentation writer. Okay. I held everything. I've written everything down between all of the discussions that I had with my tenants and just basically everything. Right. And I wanted to make sure that if I was going to be showing up in court or at the LTB, the Landlord Tenant Board, that I was going to be fully prepared.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, my wife is very analytical and she's like that as well too. And so that's a really good point. Like you should be documenting everything, and also as well too, be careful of the things that you say. Take the emotions out of it as well too. I'm sure that's probably something that you learned as well.
But it's hard. It's hard
For
when
sure.
you are in that situation. I believe that small housing providers, when you're in that type of situation, it's full on stress. It's not just about financials anymore. It is mental distress. You got to think about legal. This is not something that we do full time as small housing providers, because earlier we were mentioning how I had another job, right? So I was very distraught at the time, and not to mention I was full on pregnant too.
Yeah. There's a lot of emotions involved there, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, this is my home. Like I bought this. So
Yes.
yeah, I can see that. So what were some of the mistakes that you made? And I assume this would be what, in filling out the forms?
Yeah.
And maybe just kind of go through a couple of the forms as well too, and what you did.
Yeah, two major mistakes that I made in the N4 form. Number one was I did not deliver it properly. So with the N4, notice to evict for non-payment of rent, you have to deliver it through courier or through the mail, Canada Post, given the specific number of days. It has to actually reach the home through mailing service. You cannot just give it to them at their front door, which is what I did at the beginning.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Only the inspection notice can you give directly on the door. All of the, at least for the N4, you have to deliver it. Unless recently there have been improvements in the Ontario Standard Lease where you could check off the email box. But recommendation that I usually go out with is you should always mail it, because if you do it a tracked way through the mailing service, you at least know it had gotten there, and you have proof from the tracked mail service that it got to the place.
And listen, and here's a great point as well too, is that, listen, whether I knew it or I didn't know it, the key is things change.
Yes.
And so then you want to make sure that you're going to a professional to help you through this process.
Well, I thought I could do it all on my own because, hey, I have a university degree. I could do everything myself. I should
Right.
be able to do it all. And it was like easy peasy. That set me back several months.
Okay.
Okay.
What other mistakes did you make?
Yeah, the other top mistake that I made was when I was filling out the form and the dates were wrong. So on the N4, you have to write the beginning to the end of the month. But I had written beginning to the beginning of the month. And that is a fatal error. So for example, if the rent payment is on the 1st of the month, you should be writing January 1st to January 30th, owing blah, blah, blah amount.
Right.
But I wrote January 1st to February 1st. It's a 1 day difference, but that costed me, and I had to redo the process, wait for the entire time all over again at the LTB.
Yeah, so crazy. And then what if you spelled like their name incorrectly, or you're missing a letter, or even like a unit? If they were in the upper unit, the lower unit, like all that can cause issues, right? And start the whole thing all over again.
Those are fatal errors as well. If you write someone's name wrong, or you didn't put someone else's name on it, and then for unit numbers for sure. But good thing for me, it was a full house, right? The upstairs and downstairs all were rented to the tenants, so I didn't have to differentiate through that. But man, that probably would have been another error that I made.
Right.
Yeah.
So how long did it take then from the start of the process of trying to get them out to when they finally got out, and then how much did it cost you?
It took about 2 years from the very start
so
of the
crazy.
negotiation, right? It's not when I started filing, but it was starting the talk, giving them advance notice that I really needed to move into my house because I wanted to grow my family. And then total cost at the end, it's $35,000 in unpaid rent. But because I also gave the N12 notice, I had to pay $3,000 in compensation for 1 month's rent. And then thousands more dollars in maintenance, cleanup, renovations after they moved out, all the miscellaneous fees like junk removal, locksmith, sheriff, eviction, filing, and everything.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Has that discouraged you from investing in real estate?
I don't think it should discourage anybody else, let alone myself. We still have our condo, which we didn't end up selling, and we decided, you know what, we're going to be staying in this business because we believe that we have value to offer to folks. So we still rent out our condo right now, and have definitely learned from the mistakes of vetting tenants through our whole ordeal.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so then now, open room.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into the next topic here. So open room now becomes an idea. where did you come up with the name? Let's talk also too with your business partner, which is your husband, I believe.
Yes.
Right? How did this all come together? And when did that idea first come to mind?
Yes. Earlier, I was talking about how I was pregnant during the whole ordeal with my tenants. We had gone to the LTB. I ended up with 7 specific LTB decisions. So if you search my name inside Openroom, search Weiting, Bolu, you'll see 7 specific records come out. And those were what we had gone through with our tenants. At the time, I just basically kept sitting in bed and I was thinking, people need to be held accountable for their actions. And I went to CANLI, which is the Canadian Legal Information Institute, which is run by, I think, 13 different law society groups. They should have all of these decisions posted. So I naturally thought, hey, I have these decisions, I got it, can you help me post it so other people can be warned of this situation or these particular tenants? I was met with, I was basically ignored. And so from there, I thought, you know what, this is unacceptable and I'm gonna go build something. Because both my partner and I work in software. We build software,
okay,
right?
Yeah.
He's more on the engineering leadership side, and I was more on the product management side. So then we decided we're going to go do something about it, and that's how Openroom came about. And we decided on the name of Openroom because when we say our future, our vision is to create a more transparent future. So then that's where the open part came. Okay. And then the room part came about when we have all of these real estate investors, small housing providers. All of us should feel as if we're in the same room, even though we're all spread out everywhere. So in that full transparency, connectedness to the future, we're all in that same room. So that's how Openroom came about.
Got it. Okay. And so when did it launch?
It launched when we were on parental leave in about July 2022. But it was just like we built it.
Okay.
We didn't even do anything with it. Nobody knew about it. It was just my specific orders inside the system until September 2022 was when it really started getting a little bit more momentum because Solo. Don't know if you know about Solo, but it's the Small Ownership Landlords of Ontario. It's a Facebook group that started during the pandemic time frame when all of these small landlords couldn't handle the situations that they were in because of many tenants not paying rent. Mm-hmm. So that's when we've really took off through word of mouth.
I don't think I heard about it until I think maybe late last year, 2023. Mm-hmm. And I think it was when, was the CBS news report came out? When did that take place? That I think, at least for me, that's when I saw it blow up. I'm like, oh, I need to have you on here.
Oh, it was CBC.
CBC?
The CBC reported on us. Oh, yeah. Very interesting you mentioned that. We got on the CBC when Mike Smee, the journalist, was actually reporting another landlord's situation. Mm-hmm. That landlord called CBC and said, I have a non-payment of rent situation. And these tenants are actually repeat offenders. And I found out that they were repeat offenders because I found them inside Openroom. And that's when CBC reached out and said, Weiting, I've never heard of this before, but I report on landlord-tenant issues all the time. Right. I need to talk to you. So that's when we jumped on and they reported on us. Got it.
Okay. So how many people have visited this site and how many I guess even cases are in there? Like, is it like, and how far back does it go?
Okay. There are many questions in there. So in terms of how many people have visited, I haven't looked at the 2024, but 2023, we had over 100,000 people visit the site, conducting about 2 million searches. And right now, that was before the CBC article launched and before all of these outlets started talking about us unprompted. So it's funny how we go viral when other people talk about us, but we don't prompt them. They never talk to us, but they go viral on our content, which is fascinating.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then so right now, since the CBC article, we're now averaging about 50,000 visitors to the site, conducting hundreds of thousands of searches every single month. And we have started to see shifts in the behavior of the rental ecosystem.
In what way? So when you say 50,000, you talk about monthly?
Monthly visitors.
That is crazy. Yeah. So you went from 100,000 in 1 year to now about 50,000 monthly.
Yes.
Wow.
I know. It wasn't supposed to be anything at the beginning, right? It was a weekend project that we had built. And then now we're averaging thousands
That's
of
incredible.
eyeballs.
That's incredible what you guys have accomplished. It really is. So you got lots of people that are visiting. They're using it, and then when you say that there's been a shift now, a shift in what sense? What do you mean?
Yeah. Shift in that if people think that they can get away with bad behavior, such as non-payment of rent,
Yep.
they think again. Because they know
Right.
that they are going to be held, they're going to be going to the LTB. And as soon as that happens, there's a court order that comes out, and then they will be posted publicly to the individuals.
Right. So now it's in an it's in your site, Open Room. But I mean, it was always available, right? But people just didn't maybe pay attention to it or didn't really look into it. Is that a fair statement?
Available, like Open Room being available?
No. I'm talking about, okay, so the case takes place.
Mm-hmm.
So then now it's done. It's available for anybody to go and view.
No.
It wasn't.
It's not. The
Okay.
LTB holds it in their system. So back to one of your earlier questions, do we have everything? We don't have all of the orders that are out there. So we work on aggregating and crowdsourcing. So this means if, Gary, you went to the LTB, you had a dispute, you come out with a court order, you decide personally that you want to post it inside Open Room.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've had just about 14,000 of those documents now inside.
Oh, so I have to then go to you and say, post this.
Yes, so we don't have everything.
Got it. Okay. So then if I don't, now, can that be for me or can it be from the tenant? Like, who can make that decision? Either or?
Anybody can post, technically. So it can be your paralegal, it can be you as a housing provider, it can be a property manager, a tenant. We have also seen avid fans from the tenant side.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
What are some of the misconceptions of Open Room? Are there any?
Yes, that we are solely focused on providing value to the landlords or the housing providers, and we only docs, say, the tenant side. And that is not the case, because we want to hold both the landlords and the tenants who are irresponsible accountable for their actions.
I agree with that. Look, I'm not even looking for landlord friendly. I'm just looking for fair. Mm-hmm. That's really what I want out of this system. And I think that's what Open Room, maybe that's why I'm so interested in it, because I think it's something that'll be hope to create fairness. That's what you want.
When we say fair, it's very subjective.
Fair enough.
Right? So it's like, how do we think about a fair system? And is it up to one player to make a fair system? I don't think that's the case. I think that when we look at, many of people complain about the LTB, about the government, but stop complaining. Let's do something about it, right? If you look at how Open Room grew, we were completely organic. We had, so far, Gary, we have paid $0 in advertising.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Like $0. And they say, publicity. We go out there, people ask us, say, for example, you asked me to show up on this podcast, and I love the work that you're doing with your group of users and your clients. And I love doing that. I want to make sure that people know about what we're building for the future and what we have right now so that they can make better informed decisions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So how do you use Open Room? Is it just a matter of just going in there and searching? Is that what all it is, or is there other things that you can do in there?
Right now, which is April 2024, what you do is you go to Open Room. So it's www.openroom.ca. You go in there and there's a search bar. You basically search for people's names or addresses and then click search, and then it pops out with records if there was any match in the system.
Okay.
And then when you see a match, what you're able to do is then click on that record and see the specific details behind the order that was written in there. Say, how much was the non-payment? What happened during the dispute?
Right. So somebody that's listening, what would you encourage them to do to help Open Room?
Ooh, that's a good question. Say, continue to talk about us, but don't use it as a weapon. I think that many people, or some of the people that are critics of Open Room, they feel that Open Room is weaponizing the data behind what we share with individuals or our user base. But I want people to know and help us build for a better future. Because if we're ever going to get to a future where housing providers would say open up their units for rent because they feel that they are in a more fair, quote unquote, system. We need more help. We can't just be continuing to be at each other's throats, right? Like the tenants hate the landlords hate the tenants. We can't. So to help us, talk about us, but talk about ways that we can make more informed decisions.
Yeah, no, I agree. So then you're also saying that in regard, well, percentage-wise, I don't know if you can share this or not, but what are you seeing most of the records that are going into Openroom? Are they coming from the tenants? Are they coming from the landlords? Are they pretty even?
I would say mostly coming from the landlords, right? Because if we think about how many applications go to the LTB, this year it was about 73,000 between the time frame of 2022 to 2023 based on the LTB reports. Yep. And I specifically talk about the LTB because although we exist all across Canada, we actually have court orders from across Canada, but we specifically hone in Ontario, all right? So, okay, back to the LTB stats.
Okay. So you can go right across Canada, but you don't.
Oh, we do. But we hone in on specific LTB to make sure that we do more discussions, educating the public about how the LTB works. And we don't, say, for example, talk about RTB, which is in Residential Tenancy Board of British Columbia, for example. Right? We'll get there eventually. But right now it's like, can we educate just in Ontario first? But we do have court orders that come in from all of these other provinces, crowdsourced. So back to the question around the percentages. So the number of applications that go into the LTB from a landlord versus tenant, it's like 90 to 10. Right? So 90% of the applications are submitted by landlords and then 10% are submitted by the tenants. So if we look at applications just submitted to the LTB, what will end up at Openroom is similar in that type of 10-90 split.
Okay. Yeah, so it's heavily more on the landlord side.
Yes, I would say. Yeah.
What have been some of the issues that you've encountered? Has anybody tried to shut down Openroom? Have you gotten hate mail?
Yeah. I mean, anybody can go on Reddit and see that it seems like every other week someone is talking about Openroom, right? So we definitely get, I'd say, quote unquote, hate. There are very specific people who don't understand how we operate and the future that we're trying to build. But as soon as we start educating those people on how we function, then it becomes more digestible for them. And they understand that we're taking precautions in, say, checking through every single submission that comes into the system. And we've rejected thousands of submissions. But back to...
And then why are you rejecting them?
So say, for example, you, Gary, submit something. You could have just sent in a picture of a book. That's not a court order. So then my team, we look at every single order submission that comes in to make sure that it's legitimate before we post it out to the public.
But isn't it straightforward, though, to see what's legitimate and not legitimate?
It's not that straightforward because the good professional people will doctor the documents.
Oh, right. And now, especially with AI.
Yeah.
That makes it even more difficult.
Sure. I haven't figured out how to do that yet, but yeah.
Right.
Like how to doctor a document with AI for a court order. I haven't done that myself. But someone smart, maybe. Yeah.
Is there like a legal kind of what's it called again? Like that stamp, I can't remember what it's called again. Like, when you have a business, you get like a little stamp there. Do they have that on there? I'm sure. Where it's embroidered?
Well, because these are digital documents. So after you go to the LTB, it comes out with a PDF.
Okay.
And there are specific things that we check in there that gives us advance notice that this is fraud or this is not a legitimate document. You cannot just go in there and post about an ex-girlfriend, for example.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then what were some of the things that have people been trying to shut you down? So they have been.
You know what? There was an instance, which I'll share with your listeners here. We thought it was quite amusing. I mean, it was pretty fascinating at the time that that people even wanted to shut us down. Okay. But there was someone in particular that had gone to AWS and submitted a complaint about us. AWS is Amazon Web Services. Okay. So they host all the back end of the systems, like many millions of businesses run on AWS.
Okay. I don't think I even knew that.
Yeah. Well, in the tech field, this is very common. But this person submitted a complaint, and then AWS went to one of our domain name server providers called Netlify. And Netlify, because at the time we were on a free plan, they don't have to talk to us before shutting us down. So they just completely shut us down without even doing any sort of verification checks that this a particular person complaining was saying legitimate things.
When you say a free plan, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, subscription plans. So with Netlify, you have subscriptions, monthly subscription to keep your domain name server like openroom.ca live and open to the public.
Oh, okay.
You have to
but
pay.
I mean, you could have went to GoDaddy, or you could have went to like some other ones, could you not?
We could, and that's what we did at the end, because going through that whole experience of being shut down without being notified, it was a very interesting experience. Like, we didn't even know that it went down until multiple people messaged me and called me, and we ended up on Reddit thinking someone was like, "Did Openroom shut down? What happened?" And then that's how we knew that it shut down. I think it was on a Sunday.
Right.
Yeah, and
Okay.
then we spent several hours bringing it back up.
Now, with some of the hate mail that you're getting, right, do you find that people are open, though, to change? Are they like, oh, okay, thank you for educating me? Or do you find a majority of them are just like, I don't care, this is bad, don't do it?
No, it's the former. The former. People want to be educated, and they do
That's
believe
good.
in a future of holding people accountable and building for that transparent future.
That's good. Oh.
Yeah. Where I would say it's the people who are completely against open room are the people who say, for example, are non-payment of rent tenants. All right? And they have done something bad, which is not pay their rent. When I say not paying your rent is a bad action, it's because you can't just go into, say, a grocery store and decide I'm not going to pay my rent, my groceries, and just walk out with groceries. Right? Similar to a situation of a tenancy, you are paying for a good and a service. A service, for example, all of the utilities, the warmth of that the house can give, and then the good being the property that you get to live in. And you can't just not pay your rent. There may be bad landlord behavior where they never take care of maintenance, but that's when we need to go to these other systems that are in place, like the LTB, to resolve those. You can't just decide not to pay rent.
Yeah, and listen, also too, tenants, if you're listening to this, like get your, if you do have a slum landlord, get this into open room. Like, I think it should be a two-way street.
Yes.
You know, to me, like knock on wood, fortunately, I've got great tenants right now. I've had bad tenants in the past, but to me, my tenants they're like gold to me.
Yes.
And I treat them with the same respect that I would want to be treated as well too. And so I think this is a great tool, honestly, for everybody to create a fair, and again, subject to what you think is fair, but a fair system, right? Where we can help continue to keep providing housing for families, not just tenants, but they're families. They are families. And unfortunately, they're in a situation where housing has gone up significantly. And so I think I understand where some of them are coming from, where it feels like they've been, like they're losing out. Like the home ownership dream is gone or leaving them.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like they want to strike back at the landlords when it's not the landlord's fault.
Yeah.
There's other things at play that are causing these issues.
When we look at the bad reputation that small housing providers get, it's really painful because I think a lot of it stems from the fact that maybe large corporations, they don't care about their tenants or their customers who are their tenants as much. Maybe, right? That's just what the conception is in society right now. And then it trickles down to, okay, all landlords, whether you're big or large, you're just bad. And that's really painful to watch because as a small housing provider, I try to do a lot for our tenants. And I know many hundreds of small housing providers who are trying to do good. For example, I don't know if you know Kevin Costain, who wrote a book about how his tenants ended up burning down his house.
No.
Because the tenant was so angry at housing providers, landlords in general, that you get to, pick up all of these houses and then you just get to live off of other people and their money to pay your mortgage. But when he first started, when he bought a home, His thought was, I'm going to be the best provider possible. I'm going to make sure that my tenants are taken care of, such as providing them with a barbecue, rent discount, all of these good things. And then in the end, look where it got him, right? So I don't know. I think that it's really, really painful to watch that misconception.
Yeah, I agree with you as well, too. So let's move into the last section here, which I think is important, is the future of Openroom. Where do you see things going? And it sounds like you've also gotten like a lot of feedback. I mean, especially when you get like 50,000 people coming to your site, you probably get a lot of different ideas. What do you see coming down the pipeline?
First of all, we look at all of these users who are utilizing Openroom, and we want to invite everybody to actually join us in problem solving. What can we work on? But fundamentally, we work on the thesis of housing providers. You're providing a business. You're running a business and providing a service and a good to somebody. So in order to do that, you have to be able to learn how to run a compliant business, make informed decisions. And that's the way that you can treat your customers, who are your tenants, with care and respect. So that's our fundamental thesis. And then when we look at where are we trying to build? So what does make informed rental decisions mean? It could be things such as the court orders, where we pull out the metadata, like the body text of the court orders. And this allows you to search adjudicators, paralegals that may represent you, or you're picking which paralegal should I go have represent me. That's one element. Or it could be elements of, all right, I'm going to invest in
I see what you're saying.
property.
So then, yeah. Okay, so for every single case, so you can't actually pull out the paralegal's name?
Yes.
Or you can't yet? Oh, you can?
Right now you cannot, but
Right.
next month you will.
Very cool. And then you would then say, okay, I like the way that this case went. I want to use this paralegal to represent me.
Yes, like make informed decisions, because when
Right.
I was going through all of this, it was, all right, I'm going to do a Google search and then see what comes up. And then the reason why I picked the paralegal that I did at the time was because he did some coaching in the system, but I didn't look at the cases that he took on, the win rates or anything like that. So we're going to be able to build on that data and
Very
share that with
cool.
everybody.
I like that. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one element.
Okay. What else?
The other element is continuing to educate the small landlords. So right now we have the rental housing provider training program that we do with everybody. We're not a take our course, you are gonna get rich quick type of situation. It is being or running a rental business is hard work. So
Right.
learn how to do it. And we're going to be throwing out more content that will educate individuals.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so is that like in the form of webinars? Is that maybe starting your own podcast? Like how are you planning on educating them?
Yeah, right now it's the course, the training program that we have that is already live. It's virtual. And then that's a paid version of Openroom, where
Okay.
you would pay to take the course. If you can commit 6 Saturdays with us, do it at your own time, full day Saturdays, then you're going to be able to digest all of that material.
So that's already pre-recorded?
Yeah, pre-recorded, already ready to go.
Okay.
And then there's the other side, which is our social media, where I talk about my mistakes and other housing providers' mistake, and it seems to have gotten great reactions from people, where one of the videos ended up getting like 500,000 views lately.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that
yeah.
where, on Instagram?
Yeah, on Instagram. Yeah. So
Okay.
I throw out little tidbit digestible content in there if you want to just take bite size and don't want to necessarily learn everything all at once.
Very cool. Okay. And what else do you see coming down the pipeline? So that's 2 that I like so far.
Yeah. What we're working towards is rent reporting.
Okay.
Okay, rent reporting, for those who don't know, is all about reporting rent payments to Equifax or TransUnion.
Okay.
Okay, so that would be if you pay your rent on time, we will report it into the credit bureaus so that you can increase your credit score and build a credit history. But if you have bad debt arrears, for example, many of the court orders that come into our system are for non-payment of rent. We're also going to be doing that type of reporting back into the system, these credit bureaus, to impact your credit score and credit history negatively.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. How does that play into what Trudeau just recently came out with? Was it the Tenant Bill of Rights?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's something that he was advocating for as well, too.
Yes, because I think that when Trudeau looks at it, he definitely sees that there is value in making sure that people get, value in the good behavior. So if you're doing rent payments, then and you're paying your rent on time, then you should get benefit from it. And that's exactly where we're going down as well, is that we want to help you build that, and we're doing it all for free.
Right. And I agree. But it should also be in the other way as well, too. If you're not paying your rent, then it should also impact you negatively,
Exactly.
which I don't think he said, and whether or not he's going to. But I mean, I get it. It's a political, display of saying, hey, vote for me. This is what I'm advocating for you, right?
Yes. And it was quite vague when it came out, so I think that we'll hear more about it. But I think that it's great that he is educating the community that this is actually even a possibility, because prior to his announcement, I think that the vast majority of people didn't even know that this was a possibility to help improve your credit score.
Right.
So, and I also have to point out just a disclaimer and make sure that everybody is aware of this, is that 90% of tenants are fantastic.
Yes.
It's the 10% that really cause a headache for everybody, and that's where everybody's so focused on, because when it's bad, it's really bad.
That is a good stat. I've been sharing that exact number, pretty close to that number, since, I've been investing in real estate. Like 80% of tenants are good.
Yeah.
10% of tenants are great. Like they will actually leave your home better than you gave it to them, and then 10% are bad. The difficult thing is that the 10% are really good at hiding themselves in the other 90%, and that's where you've got to be, do your due diligence and really be on the ball.
Yes.
Because man, and you know what the interesting thing is too, is that when you do make the mistake and you get somebody bad in your investment property, you know exactly where you went wrong. Almost most of the time.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but most of the time.
I mean, then when you know you have gone wrong, you look back and you're like, wow, I saw so many red flags I should have seen, but I don't know why I didn't see it at the time.
I think it's emotions as well, too. Emotions comes into play.
Yeah.
Right.
I think a lot of it also stems from the fact that as a small landlord, many people think, even back in the day, me thought, I just need to buy a property and then it's passive income. It is farthest from passive income unless you have somebody else do it for you.
Yes.
All right. So when we think about that, many people don't know about all of the intricacies, like what is the Landlord Tenant Board? What is the Residential Tenancies Act? People don't know about the laws and the guidelines to be running a compliant business. And that's where things fall apart.
And listen, even when you do get a property manager, it's either you manage your tenants or you manage your property manager. You're managing one or the other, right? So it is. It's not passive like people think it is, What else do you think about the future of Openroom? Anything else that you see coming down the pipeline?
Some of the other things that my co-founder and I are thinking about is, for example, incentivizing people to pay back their landlord if you are in a non-payment of rent court order situation.
Okay.
How do we help you redeem yourself if you are a tenant that happened to have, say, a bad streak in life? Can we be more effective in incentivizing you than, say, the collections agencies? Those are some of the problems that we're thinking about. Or another one could be, if you land in Openroom, but you're actually, you won the case. For example, a tenant taking a landlord into the court system for bad faith evictions. If you won, how can we protect you? And today we have started to do that, where, for example, we make your name not searchable in the system on specific type of orders if you were the one that won and it was specifically a bad faith eviction. These are some of the problems that we think about. Because when I end the workday, I'm still thinking about Openroom constantly, because I really feel like we are part of the solution to the housing crisis. We're not the only solution, but we're part of it. So how can we help the ecosystem?
Yes, I agree. And listen, if there's anything that I can do to help, please reach out.
Thank
because you. I think I think what you guys are doing is very important. I really do. I want to kind of wrap it up with this, and I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate your time. I know that you recently went to an event out in Peterborough, and I think it was specifically on the automatic eviction, and what else was in there. But yeah, can you talk a little bit more on that? And do you actually see that being a possibility? And just maybe explain that a bit for anybody who's listening and they're not aware of it.
Yeah, it was at the Peterborough Landlords Association, and the event actually was just supposed to be a 20-person event. But then I remember CBC actually wanted to do a segment on Openroom, so I said, hey, we're actually going to be presenting, or I'm going to be presenting at the Peterborough Landlords Association. Why don't you come along? And then it turned into, all right, Chris Seepy came along as well to present about his petition that had gone pretty viral, getting about 37,000 signatures of individuals. the topic of it was that he was presenting on was about automatic evictions for people who don't pay rent. And what that entailed was, specific procedure that you don't have to go to the LTB, and all you have to do is submit evidence. And then there would be someone in the back office that looks at it, maybe another committee that is formed at the government level that looks at this type of evidence and then issue an order right away without the intermediary of an adjudicator.
Right.
Yeah, so that was the premise of it.
And this used to be in place at one point in time.
Yes, and some parts or some provinces across Ontario, across Canada, actually has this in place.
Right. But they had it here in Ontario. It sounds
Yes.
like back in the, I don't know when it came in, 90s, and then I think
Yes.
it got removed.
Yeah.
2007, 2008, something like that.
Yes, I can't remember the specific time, but it was in place before. I think that. Well, I have two comments on the petition in particular. Number one is that I do believe that there needs to be repercussions for people who don't pay rent. And if we don't have to go to the LTB, or if we can expedite it in a different way than going through the whole LTB process, that's great. Number two, do I think that the exact immediate solution proposed in the petition, or calling it auto eviction, is a good play in marketing? I think it gets signatures, but is that the right way to, say, approach government officials? That is to be debated, right? I think that there are ways that people can compromise or figure out ways to attack the problem. That's not the only solution. And I know that Chris wants to see a better future for everybody. And if we can get to a solution that makes sense, he's all in for it.
Yeah, for sure. Look, if somebody's late on their rent payment by 2 days, okay, I get it. Like I'm all about some form of forgiveness as
Yes.
well, too, right? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that gets any traction and is able to go anywhere. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting initiative.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah. Weiting, listen, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you want to maybe say before we kind of wrap this up?
Yeah, I want to reach out to the audience members who maybe are thinking about owning a business or taking a risk. It's do it. And I think
agree.
it's really, really fascinating to see us do that whole organic growth. And then I wanted to go back to my beginning when I talked about my parents helping me, right? I think that for me, when I look back at what I'm doing right now, I quit my job and basically in the negatives every single day trying to provide some more value to the community. But I was a scholarship kid when I went into university. So that means that somebody paid money for me to go through and get educated. And from there, I was able to save up and get the investment property, even though I had my parents involved. From there, all that is to say is that I want to give back to the community. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I believe that I see the disruption or the pieces of the ecosystem that is ripe for disruption, and I want to solve those challenges.
Right. I appreciate exactly what you just said there. And I know that it's coming from a good place, because I know when I reached out to you, it almost felt like I was in an interview. And it means that you were doing your investigation to make sure that you're getting your message out to the right people. And doing it with people that you think can help your mission. So thank you for your time. If people want to learn more about you, how can they find you? And I'm definitely going to have all your contact information in the show notes below.
Yes. I mean, contact me through Instagram, TikTok, email. Basically, I'm the person behind the screen that you're talking to, and I do read every single email that comes in, and I try to respond to them all. I even browse the Facebook, the Reddit posts, anything that goes on the internet. People send it in to me, so I'm watching, and I see all the supporters out there. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll do this again.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome.